Hi, everyone. I'm Lynn Forbes, co-founder of WOA Network, Women Honoring Our Age. And we have a very special subject to talk about today, and that is love when you get older. Love, 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 up and down the street. I'm getting married in a few weeks, and I think Cindy in a couple months, yes?
Yes.
Marcy's been married for 3 years.
3 years, yes.
And Tammy, have you set a date?
Have not set a date. We're living on the edge.
You are. So I would love, I'm sure our audience would love to hear your stories and your journey. I look at it as a journey. I feel so grateful because it's so special. I mean, the twists and turns that life brings you and the travels that you take, the roads you take, and you got to find each other after all of that.
I think we know a lot more now, don't we? We appreciate now a lot more than we did in our 20s and 30s because we know what has value now.
I agree, and I also think that we're making our choices from pleasure rather than obligation or social pressure or what's expected. We're not looking at having kids anymore. We're not looking at starting out a new life and buying a new house.
I think we've all lived enough to know that fairy tales are just nice stories in books, and then the question becomes, if you meet someone and fall in love, why get married? I think, in my case, I got married because I wanted to be with this man. He had become my best friend. So, yeah, he wasn't Prince Charming, but he was the prince for me.
You know, I love these stories. I have to tell you, I learned a huge lesson. I went to high school with the man I'm about to marry.
Wow.
We were the best of friends. That was 40 years ago. And we were the best of friends. We never dated, but he never married. Turns out, as he said to me, I think I've been waiting for you my whole life. But when we reconnected and he had reached out for me via email, I never considered him my type. Because I had this preconceived idea of what my type was, which was my ex-husband's type, and that didn't work out so good, 27 years married. But here's the lesson for us women. Get rid of the my type. Appreciate what's standing in front of you. Value it for that worth. And all of a sudden, I was looking at the man of my dreams. When I got rid of the preconceived idea of, well, he's not over 6 foot, and he isn't assertive vocally, he's more calm and demure and, you know, that kind of thing, but it's just not the kind of guy I'm generally. Had he asked me out on a date, I would have said, thank you, I'm not dating.
This profile you have in your head probably formed when you were, 16 years old about the right person for you. Truly, with my fiance, I would have thought he was adorable and I would have liked him very much, but I probably wouldn't have dated him. He doesn't have a college education. You know, he's from a part of the country I couldn't relate to. I mean, on and on. Here he is, the most wonderful, generous man, runs a successful business, as smart as he could be, well-read. So why do I care whether or not he has a college education? But that was my profile.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And what do we know when we're 18 and 20? Not a whole lot.
Exactly.
But we stick with these notions, for lack of a better word. So glad you stepped out of your box. So glad I stepped out of mine because he is my beshert, the best thing pretty much that ever has happened to me, other than my daughter.
Well, I do have to say that I don't want to commit reverse ageism right now in this conversation because I think there are many, many women out there who are listening to this who met their high school sweetheart and they are still with them. I have considered myself a late bloomer, and I don't think that any of my previous relationships were wrong or not the right one. They were absolutely right at that time.
Exactly.
And I'm just thankful that I still have passion, love, and as you clearly stated, you can only add to your skills, your education, your experiences. So I have more wisdom about these things now.
Many people ask me, why are you getting married at all? I mean, you don't need to be supported. You're not going to have a family together, and so why do you want to get married? Do you guys get that question?
I'm usually asked as, how did I meet him? And that's another
Let's hear it.
But do you want to know it now? Do you want to hear it now? I met him on Match.com. The great online phenomenon. I was ready to get off of Match. I was done. I had dated a few people, and it just didn't seem as though it was going to happen for me. And so my 6-month subscription was winding down. At that time, John had popped on for a free trial weekend. We just connected, and that's how it was.
For me, that's one of the beauty of, being over 60, having lived some life and having the wherewithal to not only know what I want, but to ask for it. Yet at the same time, you're still experiencing the magic of this crazy moment in time that either of you could have missed each other. So you still have that beautiful romance that people think goes away after a certain age.
It doesn't.
It doesn't at all.
No, it doesn't go away. About 10 years ago, my girlfriends and I were all out for a glass of wine, and we all wrote down the qualities that we wanted in a man, and I had that in my wallet for a long time, and I found a copy of the paper recently. I looked at this list, and he was all of those qualities, all those beautiful and the in-between qualities. Wow. So I think I asked for him.
I believe in that 100%. I think, in fact, writing it down helps manifest it. But another thing to pay attention to is the antithesis of that, and that's resisting what you want, which is what I did. I walked up to a man at a wedding who was a friend, and he had gotten the wedding couple together. So I came up and toasted him and said, well, you get some credit for this because you got the wedding couple together. And he boasted that he had gotten 12 different couples together.
Wow.
So I looked at him and I said, I'm putting in an order. And I ordered a summer romance. I said, I'm not interested in a long-term relationship. I want a summer romance. And I turned and walked away, and he turned to his wife and he said, she's ordering short, she wants more. And then he walked right up to Bruce and said, see that lady over there? And that's how it began.
Wow.
Now, wait, that's how it began with the fella you're marrying?
Yes.
At this point, what really gets me so happy and excited is to have all these people, every single person at that wedding I love, and have all these people gather around us and with us.
So I want to ask you about your vows, and I want to ask you if you're going to do a first dance.
We're not going to do a first dance. I'll answer that one quite, very quickly. Not into all that. I'll be dancing. Don't worry. There's a great dance band. Get your party shoes on. But as far as our vows, yes, we're writing our vows and reciting them to or speaking them to each other that night. We have a little bit of a surprise as far as audience participation in our vows that I will not go into here because it's a secret. Maybe I'll come back and tell you about it later.
Please come back and tell us.
In my situation, Stephen has never been married.
Wow.
So it is super important to him. He said, Tammy, I want to have a proper wedding. It's the only one I'm getting in my whole life. I've waited for you my whole life, and I want to do it right.
Oh, that is so romantic.
I know. You know what he said to me? He said, when we were talking about this, he said, I don't need to be your first love. I just want to be your last. And he proposed. He said, I think, and actually it was the sweetest thing because he's not very good at this. He's not quite, which is good because it means he hasn't had practice. But
what a relief.
He actually began to cry. And it wasn't an elegant cry. It was a little snot-nosed cry. He looked at me and he says, I think I've been waiting for you my whole life. You are my Beshert. You are my beloved. You ladies were so graceful in receiving the good things that came your way, and I was a little bit more resistant and feeling that I had been married my whole life, really. I married at 23 and divorced at 50. And the question people were asking me, not so much when are you getting married, but why aren't you getting married? You love him, you're living with him, you've moved your whole life to be with him. What's the problem? Well, the problem was, unlike you, I felt, why should I? You know, my parents are gone. My kid is 28. I don't need anyone's approval. We're not having a family.
So why are you?
And the answer was, it would be if Stephen didn't need it in his life, it would be more than wonderful for me to be just the way we are. But it means so much to belong to someone the way he has never belonged to someone.
Wow.
And I would never want him to not have that. I'm already his. I'm already in it for the long haul. So for me, it doesn't, up here it doesn't matter. Here it doesn't matter. So the answer was, why? Of course I will.
A teacher of mine said that I went into my relationship with Bruce with both barrels. I came out shooting.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, from the get-go, I tested what he said. I challenged him. And apparently he had a rougher time with it than he was willing to share with me at the time. But he had asked a friend, like, what do I do with this? And he said, I haven't actually met this woman, but I know women like her. And she wields a very sharp axe. And she wants it to hit something solid. She doesn't want it to hit mush. So when I tested him, he stayed strong, stable, loyal, and by my side. And when I knew I was going to be with him the rest of my life was when I trusted that he was really there, that he wasn't going to budge.
Yeah, wow. Holy smokes. These are all giving me tingles, I have to tell you. What great stories. What incredible stories.
May I share another one with you? Because going back to your first question, Lynn, why get married? I actually have an answer to that. And it was because either get married and have this man in my life or lose him entirely. When John and I met, he was not employed. He had been out of work for about a year. And he had been in the midst of a national job search. So we knew that there was a very good chance he could leave. I think gave us the added push to really, to use Cindy's word, to test it, to see if this is something we both wanted. And the time came where I just looked at him and I said, I will go wherever you go. I mean, I think there was an exception or two, but that's what happened. And he was going to be giving up the lease on his apartment, and we talked about him moving in with me. I would have been totally fine with that. He, however, wanted something of a commitment, and he said, you know, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to move in with you unless there's a serious commitment here. And I looked at him and I said, what are you saying? What are you asking me? And he said, I think I'm asking you to marry me. And that's how the proposal went, over omelets at a cafe.
I was there when Tammy got engaged. I'd never met Tammy. We had our WOA Network party in LA, and she walked in the door, and I was standing at the door greeting our guests coming in, and she said, I just got engaged. I have to tell somebody. And I was like, oh my God, wow, and he came to our party? Why didn't you bring him, right, Tammy? I was like, where is he?
He actually was there. He was in the lobby.
Oh, God. That was hilarious. That was hilarious. Okay, so this has been a fabulous conversation. Thank you so much, Cindy, Marcy, and Tammy. You guys are fantastic. I can just feel the love. It's really wonderful. And let's come back after we're all married and talk about that, because Marcy, I'm sure you have a few things you can share about the second time around, you know, and looking back, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll do that next time.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Yay.